Welcome to The Big Idea. I'm your host, Faith Lark. Today, on The Big Idea, have you ever felt trapped by expectations, yearning for a truth that lies beyond the familiar? Today, we unravel the story of a young boy who dared to defy ancient traditions, embarking on a perilous quest that would ignite a flame of awareness, changing not only his life but the course of Indian philosophy forever. What mountains are you willing to climb to find your own aha moment? At the foot of Mount Kedarnath, where heaven meets earth in a symphony of ice and stone, a young man sits motionless. His eyes are closed, but his face bears the serene intensity of one who has glimpsed beyond the illusion we call reality. This is Adi Shankara, and he has come here not to die, but to dissolve the final barrier between self and truth. The question that echoes through the centuries is not why he chose this solitary end, but what he saw that drove him to challenge everything his world held sacred. In the lush embrace of Kerala, where monsoon rains paint the world in impossible shades of green, a child dared to ask what others feared to whisper. While his peers memorized ancient verses by rote, 8-year-old Shankara posed questions that made his teachers stumble. The other children laughed, the priests frowned. But something was awakening in him that would shake the foundations of Indian philosophy. His mother watched with growing concern as her brilliant son turned away from the prescribed path of ritual and ceremony. She saw him sitting for hours by the Purna River, silent and still, while other boys played and studied. What she couldn't see was that young Shankara wasn't absent from the world. He was seeing it more clearly than anyone around him. You might recognize this feeling, standing in a crowd yet feeling utterly alone, seeing what others cannot or will not see. For Shankara, this isolation came with a price. His insights into the nature of reality, profound beyond his years, marked him as different. Yet his understanding of the sacred texts surpassed that of scholars thrice his age. Knowledge without wisdom is like a lamp without oil. He knew there must be more. Picture yourself standing at the edge of everything you've ever known, every comfort and security, preparing to step into the unknown. This was Shankara at 8 years old, asking his mother's permission to become a wandering monk. His mother's tears fell like monsoon rain, but something in her son's eyes told her this was not a child's whim. This was destiny calling. The road stretched before him like an unwritten verse, each step a syllable in a poem of discovery. Through forests where tigers roamed, across rivers swollen with rain, past villages where people stared at this child monk with mixture of awe and suspicion. He was searching for a teacher who could show him not just the words of truth, but its very essence. The heat blistered his feet, hunger gnawed at his belly. Yet with each painful step, the questions that burned in his mind grew clearer. What if the world we see is not the world as it is? What if the boundaries between self and other, between human and divine, are merely lines drawn in sand? When Shankara finally found his teacher, Govindapada, in a remote Himalayan cave, the moment was like two flames merging into one greater light. Here was someone who could see through the same veil that had troubled young Shankara. In that cave, illuminated by more than just firelight, Shankara's understanding crystallized into what would become Advaita Vedanta, the philosophy of non-dualism. If you're enjoying The Big Idea, please like, subscribe, and scan the QR code for our free 7-day email course, Mental Models Mastery. Learn to make better decisions and think like Einstein, Da Vinci, and Socrates. Now back to the episode. Like a master swordsman wielding truth instead of steel, Shankara began to challenge the philosophical giants of his time. His weapons were logic and direct experience, His armor was unshakable conviction. The famous debate with Mandana Misra lasted days. Picture two intellectual titans locked in combat, while the very foundations of religious thought trembled. When Shankara emerged victorious, even his opponent's wife, herself a great scholar, acknowledged his mastery. But Shankara wasn't content with winning debates. He saw a fragmented society, torn apart by competing philosophies and empty rituals. With the energy of youth and the wisdom of ages, he established 4 monasteries at India's cardinal points: Sringeri, Puri, Dwarka and Badrinath. Each became a beacon of learning, a center where the highest truths could be explored and shared. Think of how radical this was. A young man barely in his 20s, creating an institutional framework that would survive centuries. While others built temples to house idols, he built centers to awaken minds. Success brought its own challenges. Traditional authorities saw his teaching of direct spiritual experience as a threat to their power. How dare this young upstart suggest that truth could be found without their intermediary role? Yet even as opposition mounted, his influence grew. People recognized in his words something they had always known but forgotten, like remembering a dream upon waking. At 32, having revolutionized Indian philosophy, established institutions that would last millennia, and written commentaries that scholars still study today, Shankara made his final journey. He chose Kedarnath not as an escape, but as a culmination. Here, where earth reaches toward heaven, he would demonstrate his ultimate teaching. That separation is an illusion, that the individual self and the universal consciousness are one. What does this mean for you, reading this centuries later? Shankara's journey wasn't just about philosophy, it was about the courage to question everything you think you know. To look beyond the comfortable illusions that society hands us and ask, what is real? What is true? What veils am I accepting as reality? His final message wasn't to worship him or even to follow his path exactly. It was simpler and more profound. Look deeply into the nature of your own consciousness. Question the boundaries that seem to separate you from others, from the world, from truth itself. The mountains claimed him, yes, but in claiming him, they set him free. And his challenge echoes through time. What illusions are you ready to shed? What truth are you prepared to see? The illusion of separation is a powerful cage, but you, like Shankara, hold the key in understanding your own divinity. The question is not whether you will use it, but when. On the next episode of The Big Idea, S.H. Shankara's quest for unity showed us the power of seeing one truth through many lenses. But what happens when that truth feels distant, lost in the noise of modern life? Imagine a world where ancient wisdom is not locked away in scriptures, but shouted from a charismatic leader with a modern twist. What if I told you a skeptical journalist would become the catalyst for a spiritual revolution? Get ready to meet a figure who, armed with sharp intellect and boundless energy, bridged the gap between ancient Vedic thought and post-independence India. Stay tuned, because this week, we continue delving into the depths, unearthing how one man made spirituality accessible, relevant, and utterly transformative. Please like, subscribe, and scan the QR code, or follow the pinned link to get our free 7-day email course, Mental Models Mastery. 7 mental models used by humanity's greatest minds. Think clearer, decide faster, and spot opportunities everyone misses. Click the video that just popped up to watch the next one in this series. Or for episode summaries, behind-the-scenes info, and more, go to daily8.com/bi. Thanks for watching.